Today, I'm going to be sharing all sorts of gambling stories about Norm MacDonald, a man who would rather be in a casino than an SNL after party.
You know a funny story about you gambling is?
No.
At SNL, when they give you the limo to go to the party, you'd go to Atlantic City.
Oh, yeah.
Norman's like, where is he?
Because the driver would always be like, I'm paid for this. He'd have to sit outside of Trump for 2 days.
I'd probably do the exact same thing. Welcome to another episode of Catching You Up with
Nadav, it's Wist.
I would like to thank the executive producer of today's episode, Wolfsky Comedy. Without Wolfsky Comedy, I'd probably be going to all sorts of different music festivals, coming up with really shitty designs and printing them for about $5 a piece, but standing outside with the table selling them for between $25 to $30, hence making about a $20 to $25 profit margin on each unit. And I'll tell you what, that shit racks up fast, but it's also a grind and a hustle. And because of Wolfsky Comedy, I don't have to do that. If you'd like to become a big baller supporter of the show, you can go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. Now would be a good time to remind you, comment on this video, like this video, share this video, also subscribe to the channel. In a 2021 GQ article, journalist Michael Kaplan does a pretty good job of encapsulating Norm MacDonald's gambling habits. Kaplan was commissioned by Playboy to go spend a weekend with Norm MacDonald in Vegas, which is so interesting. It seems like Norm participated in quite a bit of gambling content with Playboy. Here's a clip from a really solid poker show that it's seemingly Playboy TV had no business throwing.
So, Jenny, what month was your issue?
Quoting Churchill.
May of 08.
Who was on the cover? Do you remember?
It was a Russian girl. And my nickname's Genocide, so I think that was kind of funny.
What?
What? What do you mean?
Is Genocide giving her comedy fucking advice?
Why is that? It's funny because there was a genocide.
In Russia?
Only about 7.
But in this GQ article, Kaplan writes, Norm MacDonald read Beat the Dealer at age 8 and learned to count cards. Growing up on a farm in rural Canada, he passed time while dealing himself endless hands of bridge and whist. Before he'd finished high school, he had developed into such a strong backgammon player that he was competitive in the tournament circuit. Around the time of our weekend together in 2006, he had perfected an impressive memory trick. Remove any card from a deck and Norm could quickly sort through the 51 remaining cards to tell you which one you selected. It's precisely the stunt that Chris Jesus Ferguson, a legendary figure in that era's poker boom, performed on ESPN. However, there's a critical difference between famously brainy Jesus and Norm. Norm did it quicker. Norm's early exposure to gambling was highlighted on the Howard Stern show, where Norm talks about the rumor that the movie Rounders was based on his life.
No, you gamble a lot. You go to these. Someone told me something amazing about you, that the movie Rounders, which is about underground gambling, was based on your life.
Oh, no.
Is that true? That they followed you around?
No one told
I didn't
you
say that.
I did. I got that information.
I know that guy who wrote it likes
Is that
Norm.
in my Wikipedia?
You know, Brian Koppelman likes you, the
And
writer
that
of
he
that.
followed Norm around, and Norm would go play poker at a lot of these underground couples in the middle of the night.
That's true.
And it's actually a documentary on Norm's life.
No, it's not.
It is.
But I would go to the same club where it was where they did Rounders, and this was before Rounders. Yeah.
Why would you play poker?
When I was a kid, I played backgammon. I was good at backgammon.
But why would you play poker at an underground club when you could go to, let's say, Vegas or Atlantic City and play poker? Why would you go underground? What is
Because
the
I was
appeal?
only a little kid. I was just a kid.
Oh, you were a kid.
Now look, I've been around Blue Chew for a minute, and I've had a bunch of friends that have tried it, and they said that it's just as good as you think it is. And one thing that I've heard from all my friends who have messed around with it have said, I feel like there's never been a single dude in the history of the world that has never had a problem getting an erection at least one time. And they've said that when you take that is now no longer something that you need to consider. You're going to show up at attention, ready to plow and blow out some backs. And that's pretty cool. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at bluechew.com. Chew it and do it. Blue Chew's got a special deal for my listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use my promo code Nadav at checkout. Just pay $5 for shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code Nadav to get your first month's supply for free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And thank you, Blue Chew, for sponsoring this podcast. Let's get back to the show. Kaplan's article talks about the weekend he spent with Norm in 2006. Norm made about $40,000 doing a show in Mandalay Bay. He put half of it in his hotel room safe, and then he hit the gambling floor with Michael Kaplan. Kaplan writes, "We cabbed it to the Mirage, a casino where Norm endured more than his share of tragic washouts. Like the time he began with $5,000, promptly losing $2,000 and impulsively bet his remaining $3,000 on a single hand of blackjack. Then I got dealt 2 aces and I had no money left," Norm said. "I asked the dealer how I can split them. The dealer said, 'Sir, you can't unless you have a line of credit.' I didn't, so I hit. Got a 10, hit again, got another 10. If I had been able to split, I'd have 2 21s. Instead, I lost the last of my money. That's when you walk away numb. You feel blank and you can't find the elevator." Apologies for that incredibly terrible Norm impression, but holy shit. It probably would have taken me a couple months to recover from a loss like that, but you only lose if you walk away. You got to keep on getting on that horse, Well, you don't have to, but it's fun to. But these are the kind of beats that will test someone, In an interview with Larry King, Norm explains how you could easily go down a path of being a filthy, hardcore gambling addict or someone that has no interest at all in gambling.
A friend of mine is very smart said, "I've been very lucky with gambling. I've never won." And it was a very profound thing, you know what I mean? Because if you never win, you don't get hooked. But I had a big win. So I was a casual gambler, would go and bet $25 on blackjack. I hit a craps table. I went on a gigantic run, won, 6 figures. And ever since then, you can't go back. You know what I mean? If you win that much money, you can't go back to $25 bets.
Over 100,000.
Yeah, just over.
Did you get a little nervous walking out with the cash?
I was afraid. I didn't know you were allowed to win that much. So at the craps table, I kept putting the chips in my pocket, because this guy was rolling for, I don't know the game. And I put money down, and then I only had $100. I just put it down, and then I won. And the guy said, "You want to press it?" And then I didn't want to look stupid. I go, "What do you think?" So the guy pressed it. He pressed every bet. All of a sudden, they were just handing me huge amounts of money. Yeah, I got scared. I started pocketing it. And then I remember at the end, I go, "Man, I must have won $15,000. And the guy goes, "You won a hell of a lot more than that, fella."
I've seen someone gamble for the first time and they go on a crazy beginner's luck run and you just see their eyes widen, their pupils dilate, and you're like, oh, this is the beginning of a real rough path for them. But it makes me thankful for my first encounter with gambling. When I was 18 years old, my dad took me to Morongo, which was the closest Native American casino that I think he knew of. We sat down, we played blackjack, and he saw me start with a stack of $100 at a $5 minimum table, and he saw me get that up to like $700. And as I'm getting up to $700, I'm starting to increase my bet sizes. So something that took me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to build up, by the end of it, I was taking such wild swings that I had lost that $700 surplus as well as my starting stack within about 15 minutes. And to teach me a lesson, my dad also let me walk to the ATM 2 times to go refill. And I'm pretty thankful for that because I got to experience the whole scale of gambling. And look, did it suck to lose $600? Yeah. But did I have $600 worth of fun? You bet your ass I did. In the article, Michael Kaplan explains a story that Norm had told him about sitting at the craps table and an attractive woman came up to him. He signed an autograph for her, and Norm told Michael Kaplan, "The worst thing is when you lose a lot of money and someone at the table thinks you're a billionaire because you've been on TV a couple times. A guy will see you lose $10,000 and he'll say to everyone, 'That's like $1 to us.' But of course it isn't. I know what it's like to lose $1 when you're broke because I've been broke. And believe me, everybody cares about losing $10,000, but nobody cares about losing $1. Now, it's easy to assume that anyone with as much gambling experience as Norm would be more of a technical, mechanical type of gambler. Kaplan explains in the article that although Norm had very serious gambling skills, he was never there to make money or to gamble on a sure thing. Norm tells a story on Letterman that kind of perfectly depicts what he means by this.
Yeah, I used to gamble.
You don't gamble anymore?
Don't gamble anymore.
Was
man.
it a problem? Did it get to be a problem?
Yeah, it got to be a problem, man. And then I tried to do it smart. Every time I tried to do it smart, a bad thing would happen,
Like
you know?
what do you mean?
Well, one time I was trying to handicap baseball, you know, which you can actually beat baseball if you handicap it properly. So I was trying to handicap, and I figured it out for like 3 hours, and I went down to the book in Mirage, the sports book, went up to the fella, you know, and there was a guy beside me, a big fat guy, you know, and he was dressed like real rich, you know, and he opened a big attaché case filled with $10,000 chips, pulls out like $750,000, and he's going to bet on this boxer, a fighter, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a 4-to-1 underdog. So I said, I'm not going to bet my baseball bet. I'll just bet on this 4-to-1 underdog, you know?
He must know something.
Yeah, because this guy must know something. He's probably in the mafia. So I go and I watched the boxing match, Dave, and my guy that I bet on gets knocked out in 25 seconds.
Oh, no. Whoa.
So I go back to the book. I go, what, that guy from the mafia? What? He goes, that guy's not from the mafia. He goes, that's old long shot Louis. He goes, he's a rich guy, loves long shots.
Hey, so I was at the fight. I was at the Pacquiao.
Yeah.
And I almost made a bet.
Yeah.
I almost made a bet that it would go the distance. Almost.
Wow.
But I was a little bit afraid. Tell everybody what your bet was, Norm.
I bet Pacquiao to win. 25,000 to win 3,000.
Wait a minute. Maybe lose 25,000 to win 3.
Yeah, but I won 3. That's the most money I ever put on a fight, and also I don't know nothing about boxing.
Hearing stories like that from Norm really make the hairs on the back of my neck stand. Losing everything you own 3 times in your life, and then feeling joy when you literally have nothing left and don't have $1 to go buy a can of Coke.
Have you ever been devastated and lost like a big bet?
I've lost everything I own 3 times. But since, I've gotten control of it since. Actually, after you lose everything, sometimes you kind of feel good. It's odd. You feel like clean. You go, hey, man, I feel all right, you know? But but one time I had nothing left, and I went up to my room, and I was like, I walked by the Coca-Cola machine. I love Coca-Cola, but I only had 65 cents to my name, right? And it costs $1. So I hatch this plan. I'll go down to the nickel slots, and I'll make myself $1. So I go down there at my 65 cents, I'm putting in nickels, and it took an hour and a half, and I get up to 95 cents 8 times. And I never broke $1. And then later I thought, I think they would have given me a free drink.
Boy, that's quite a bit of mental gymnastics you have to do to feel okay with losing everything 3 different times. Now, this doesn't mean that Norm didn't have his fair share of wins. Norm told Michael Kaplan about the time he went to the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City after an SNL. Norm had lost $2,000 playing blackjack, and on the way to the ATM, he runs into a production assistant from the show that then convinces him to come play some craps with him. After an hour and a half of playing, Norm is now up $75,000. He quickly ran back to the blackjack table and played $5,000 hands, which then got his bankroll up to $100K. After cashing out $9,800 because anything over $10,000 gets reported to the IRS, Norm put the rest of the chips in his fridge and decided that he was going to spend the next 11 weeks building up his bankroll. Whew, what a fucking run, huh?
We lived in the same building, but we're having a nice time. And I say, you got any soda? And I open up his fridge, and I swear to God, $25,000 worth of chips. Atlantic City chips are in his fridge. And I go, what's this? He goes, oh, I won big. I won big on Friday. And I said, well, why didn't you cash it in, buddy? He goes, well, I brought it here so I could talk to Bernie Brillstein to see how I don't have to pay taxes on it. So I go, oh, and he goes, yeah, so I'm gonna bring it back Monday. And he told me no matter what, I gotta pay taxes. So, it didn't work out there. So whatever, I go, oh, that sucks. So anyways, I see him at Saturday Night Live on Monday. I go, did you cash that in? He goes, I lost it all.
Unfortunately, it took him 6 months to deplete his entire bankroll. Now, to go back to the beginning of the GQ article that Michael Kaplan wrote, Michael Kaplan reveals that Norm had lost the entire $40,000 check that he made while working in Vegas. But the mental strength it takes to bet like Norm is shown through what he told to Kaplan about the entire experience. He said, "I did a good show and might lose the $40,000 that I earned, but stand-up is easy and I can always make more money." Again, apologies for the impression. Norm loved gambling. And although it's something that he had to quit, he poetically explained this in his book based on a true story.
I remember a psychiatrist once telling me that I gamble in order to escape the reality of life. And I told him that's why everyone does everything. But I've had plenty of wasted nights after losses and bigger losses to consider the question more seriously. So why the attraction? Most people would think it's the wins that keep the gambler going. But any gambler knows this is not true. As you place your chips on the craps table, you feel anxiety and impatience. When the red dice hit the green felt with a thunk and you're declared the winner and the chips are pushed toward you, you feel relief. Relief is all. And relief is fine, but hardly what a man would give the whole rest of his life to gain. It has to be something else. And the best I have come up with is this. It is a particular moment, a magic moment that occurs after the placing of a bet and before the result of that bet. It is after the red dice are thrown, but before they lie still on the green felt where they fall. It is when the dice are in the air, and as long as they are there, time stops. As long as the red dice are in the air, the gambler has hope, and hope is a wonderful thing to be addicted to.
Now, this doesn't mean he was happily married to gambling. He knew he had some form of an issue, and honestly, most people that gamble probably do. I mean, here's a wild story that he told on Opie and Anthony back in the day.
I did a stupid thing one time.
Okay, he's ready to talk.
This was my big statement I threw over at Atlantic City on the boardwalk. I threw $60,000 into the ocean.
What? No way.
Yeah, to quit. That was my thing. I'm going to quit.
Why didn't you just quit and keep the 60?
It was supposed to be like I felt like I was in a movie.
Wow.
That was a symbolic kind of a thing. Like, was it money or chips?
That was
What's
money.
that? It was money?
Holy shit.
You almost have to have a sense of humor in order to be into gambling. If you can't joke about your worst bad beats, how are you going to survive until the next hand that you play? Gambling is not for people with a thin stomach lining. Like, for example, during the Super Bowl, if Pacheco had another 6 rushing yards, I would have been up $3,000. But he didn't. So instead, I get to laugh about how much I suck at structuring my parlays. That's kind of funny, right? Is that a $3,000 joke to you? It is to me. Norm MacDonald famously said, "They call gambling a disease, but it's the only disease where you can win a bunch of money. And if gambling is a disease, I don't ever want to be cured." Which is probably the most toxic and unhealthy thing you'll ever hear me say on this show, but blow me, it's fun. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching You Up with
Nadav, it's COVID.
And I'd like to thank everyone that you're seeing on screen right now. They are all producers of this show and this episode specifically, and without their help, it'd be much harder to put this show out consistently and as well as I do. If you'd like to become a producer of this show, you could go ahead and click the Patreon link in the description below. And I hope you had as much fun watching this as I had putting it together. But most importantly, you gotta remember,
This is a totally unconfirmed news.